For another role-playing 101 discussion. You know, typical Monday, talking about role-playing, hanging out, hoping to discuss a few things that we've encountered as GMs, things we see other people complaining about, whatever it is that, comes to our minds. Co-host will be joining me here in any time. I feel like it's early. It's freaking noon. Hey there, Phantom. Welcome. And here we are. Finally got us here together. I'm having a pretty good morning. Lunchtime, I guess. I do have a list of topics for us today. We try to throw some stuff together, so we have some stuff prepared. And today, the first thing is player responsibilities. Because apparently that's a thing people keep forgetting about. That it really is your responsibility to know your character sheet. That's such a thing that we see people complain about so often. People constantly asking the GM, the DM, the storyteller for the information that is so evidently and clearly noted on your character sheet. So really, learn your character sheet. That's the one thing we ask of you. That's really the one thing. Learn your character sheet so that when we ask you something, you can easily tell us the answer. I mean, in most cases, you have one or two sheets, right? 4 or 5 at most. I know some games can get a little crazy, but that's the biggest sheet I've ever seen is like a 5-sheet character sheet. And yeah, it seems like a lot, but a few sessions in, and it's really not that hard anymore. Like, don't think about it like it's homework. This is a game. We're supposed to be having fun. So this is one of your responsibilities as a player, to know your character sheet. Defining your abilities. This is something more that we have trouble with in our freeform narrative games, where there's no dice involved, and it's all situational decisions and how well the person can explain their character, describe their character, and let us know exactly what and who they are, what they're capable of, and therefore we know what to expect from them when we're role-playing, because there's a problem with both ends of the spectrum, with defining it either too specifically or defining it too loosely. You define your abilities too loosely, and now we as GMs are kind of sitting here with a question mark, going, okay, well, where does this ability end? Where does it stop? Is it a world-ending ability, or is this just more something you're like moving puddles around? Sometimes people define it so loosely, then we have to ask a bunch of questions and figure out exactly what they want from their ability. And usually 9 times out of 10, when we ask somebody like that, usually they don't know. They're like, well, I wanted to discuss it and brainstorm about it, and that's great. That's awesome. We're usually happy to discuss those things with you and figure out a way to better define your abilities. But you have to tell us that thing. Then there's the other person who doesn't say anything, and then we really don't know where to go and what to do. And then on before combat starts, because once combat starts, it's a little too late for us to really define your character's abilities. We're already in a stressful scenario that could possibly cost somebody their life, because in the freeform narrative genre, you never know what's going to happen or when. You could die as soon as you get your character in there, just like a D&D game. You could make the wrong decision, charge into a battle you're clearly not ready for, and get yourself just totally annihilated. And so that's why it's important to define your abilities, let us know. Then you know what you're capable of, we know what you're capable of. We'll try and warn you if you try to rush into a situation that we know will clearly get you killed. We do want to help you. We're not your enemy. I know that in some games the GM manifests as your enemy, they're conniving behind a game board, but no. in the freeform narrative genre, for the most part, when we're trying to run a game with multiple players, we're just trying to make sure everyone's having a good time. And that a fun story gets told, and that you get what you want out of the story, and we still get to, tell a cool story, because that's why we're there half the time. So, on the other side, defining your abilities too intricately can sometimes box you in to the point of making it difficult to fit into the game you're trying to enter. As much as I love complicated abilities, as much as I love that stuff for, fiction, when it comes to games, I think you're really doing yourself a disservice by defining your abilities so much, like down to that iota, down to how the atoms react to things, that's making it really hard for you to be able to do other things with your abilities. Whereas the person who writes the ability loosely, they have many options on how they can develop that. You on the other end of the scale have written this ability so specific that now you literally can maybe use it in 1 or 2 instances. Exactly. That's very specific, and as cool as that sounds, I can only use this power, when the moonlight shines on my dagger in this certain way. It sounds really neat and mystical, but from a functional perspective, it's not very good. So I hope that dagger is freaking amazing and can one-shot dragons or something, because that's about the only reason that would be worth trading off that sort of limitation. Otherwise, I hope you have some other weaponry. Because obviously you can't use that dagger all the time. So, yeah. Very narrow and very loose, either way. Hey Ma, how's it going? Either way, it can be detrimental to your character. And then one of the final things about player responsibilities, and God, I stress this so often, you really, really, really need to communicate your expectations to your GM. If you are not letting them know what you want from the game, they don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. We can certainly throw plot at you, we can throw random stuff at you and try to get you interested, but without knowing what you're actually interested in, we're not mind readers. Exactly, we're not mind readers. We cannot figure out anything. It's like a relationship. In any good relationship, what's important? Honesty. So be honest with us, okay? Be honest with us. And, then it'll just work out a lot better for everyone. Again, reiterating, we're not your enemy. I'm not here to thwart you. I'm not here to make you look stupid. I'm not here to just kill your character. I want to tell a story. I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. So I want your character to live, generally speaking, because I want to continue your character's legacy. I want it to go somewhere. I want your character to grow, So that's what I'm looking for in a game and in players. I'm not here to just kill you off and think it makes me look cool in some way, because it certainly wouldn't. I'm never happy when I have to kill off a player. I give them every opportunity to save themselves. I even give them warnings with other NPCs, NPCs will start to tell them, I don't think that's really such a good idea. Maybe we should go ask people for help, because it seems like something way over our pay grade. I'll give you warning signs that maybe you shouldn't do this thing, and if you go do this thing anyway, I really can't help you. Yeah, it should. You need to be honest. This is we're all trying to have fun and tell a fun story and get what we want out of the game, and so there's no reason to be dishonest. That's super important. Super, super important. Alright, our next topic of the day is cheating, because apparently this is still a problem. Now, I know in my traditional group of friends, here in my local group, we did have one cheater. And for years, they were notorious for cheating. And after we caught them enough times, and we accused them, and we publicly shamed them, basically verbally tarred and feathered them, they've since changed their ways. And now it's interesting. For some people, it's not as important. But when you have a table full of people that are all expecting everyone to generally be pretty honest about it, gets a little annoying when there's one person always making the dice say what they want it to say. You know, gets a little annoying. If that's what you're out there for, well, that's fine. But when you are cheating, especially with a random group of people, say you go to a convention, you know, it's just good courtesy to be honest, you know, especially with the roles, you know, GMs and players alike. Just be cool about it, because otherwise you will get caught. And the unfortunate thing is if you're not caught with the GM, you will be caught by other players, and sometimes other players are way more aggressive about it than the GMs are. Like, we'll just say, hey, you know, you're probably going to have to leave the game if we're running at a convention or something like that. But another player might actually throw blows over something like that. So you just got to be really careful about where you cheat. You know, it's like cheating at cards at a bar. You know, you got your life in your hands now. You know, you don't know how these people are. Yeah, no, that's definitely suspicious. We do get suspicious of that, you know. That's like rolling 6 10s on a dice pool of 7. It's like, oh, really? Yeah, you know, everyone plays their own way. And depending on the role and the situation, like if it possibly saves someone's life, I'm pretty sure I've heard of that happening, where they'll fudge rolls to make sure the character lives, you know, because they don't think they deserve to die in that particular instance. It was just a really bad save, you know, which was me most of the time back in the day. I was the one making those bad saves, and I'm sure after a while people started feeling bad, so they're just like, oh, you know, someone had a chance to save you. I'm like, all right, whatever. I appreciate your pity, because otherwise I'd go through 10 characters. But that's just, I can't roll to save my life on a die 20. Let's see. What is that? Autoing. Autoing. So a lot of people don't know what autoing is. We've had to explain. Okay. There's 2 kinds of people. No, I get it. I don't like the easy fights either. But yes, autoing. There's 2 types of people I've found: people who have no idea what autoing is, and then the people who get so angry about it that they blow up on you if you do one tiny little thing with their character. Like even something that is logical, like if you're talking in a tavern, and so you respond as you're talking, and you know that your characters are going to exit the tavern, so you, on your turn, you control both you and your partner's character to walk out of the tavern. And that's it. That's the only motion that you took, but I've had people blow up on me about that. So, autoing is taking control of your partner's character. That's literally what autoing is. It's me. This generally happens in one-on-one, because in one-on-ones it's considered taboo. You're not supposed to do this. But if you know your partner well enough, you know what you can do. So there's plenty of times that I'll have a partner and I'll be able to take their character anywhere that we're going. Like if we're heading into town, I know I can take them into town with me. I know that they'll go in my car with me. I know, you know, they're going to accompany me everywhere that I'm going that day, so I know that I can move our characters around and that person's not going to complain about it. Whereas with someone you've just met, you're role-playing with them for the first time, especially in the one-on-one environment, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that just for courtesy's sake, because there are so many people out there that do get offended when you do it, and I understand, because I don't want people assuming that my character is going to do something either. That's why I ask. You know, I generally just try to ask. I'm like, hey, can I move our characters from point A to point B, or can I do this to your character, or hey, your character's kind of pissing my character off, can I try to punch your character? You know, just get your partner's permission. That is how you avoid autoing. Otherwise, if you know your partner well enough, you can totally get away with a lot of it. You know, you know what they're comfortable with, they know what you're comfortable with, we know what we can do, or we're just comfortable rolling with whatever our partner does, you know. Now in a GM situation, GMs have auto permission because we control the game. So I have permission to move your character from place to place. I'm the narrator. That's literally what I'm doing. I'm storytelling. I have my foes that are interacting with them. Exactly, because we control the game. Now, simply because we control the game, that doesn't mean a GM has permission to make you uncomfortable. So if they're autoing your character into a situation that is making you as a player uncomfortable, you need to speak up and say something about that. And if you haven't established triggers and boundaries yet, that is the moment you need to do so. Because I've definitely heard stories of pervy GMs Being pervy. Yeah. Yeah, no, that definitely happens, Moth. That's one of the problems. And you know, it's hard. It's so hard to please everyone, you know? You sit here and you try to set limits, and people get offended. And that's why I try not to get mad at people who get upset about the autoing. I'm like, no, I understand. I totally get it. That's why I try not to do it. But being a GM, you know, there's times when it's unavoidable. Like, I'm literally interacting with that character, narrating their story. That's all I can really do. But I would never use that power to do like what Phantom's saying. Yeah. There's a number of GMs that have an issue with this exact sort of situation. Yeah, yeah. That's exactly. That's one of those scenarios um, where it's an abuse of a GM's power. It's not something I see often, but it's something I hear about often enough that it makes me unhappy, you know, as a GM. Exactly, you know, and that's a good way to manipulate it, you know. Yeah, exactly. You know, as a GM, it's our job to try and convince the player to do things without actually forcing them to do it. You know, so that's one of those tactics that's perfect. You know, you're not autoing them, you're not forcing them. They have to make the decision. You know, totally fine. It's when you're forcing them to do things, especially when things that are outside their character or the scope of their class, even. You know, that's not okay. Um, that's pretty much the end of that subject. There's not much else to touch on that one. Let's see, next is player and NPC interaction. And this is, what I mean by that is, uh, familiarize yourself with your own thread. Don't bother so much with others. And what I mean by that is be careful about the line between in-character IC knowledge and out-of-character OOC knowledge. People have a real hard time with this, and we see it all over the place. Folks have a hard time remembering that things they read in another player's thread is basically sensitive information they would never be aware of. Thus, their character has no reason to address it. If you can keep these things separate and from affecting your choices in game, then fine. Read other people's threads, listen to their story arc, but don't use that sensitive information against them or the GM. We won't freaking allow it. We won't. Yeah, it is a thing, you know. I wish it was less of a problem, but alas, here we are. We've seen so many people who have a hard time keeping the IC and the OOC information separate. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I'd rather have a player ask that, you know, honestly. I'd rather have them ask, hey, does my character know this? So I can tell them, no, your character does not know this. And then usually they act accordingly. So I'm really appreciative of that. It's the person who acts on that knowledge. And then we have to pull them aside and be like, hey, bro, your character did not know that. Now you have to go back and edit your posts, you know, or fix what you're doing if it's a live game, you know. Yeah, it's much rather have them ask me. That's so much nicer. So much nicer. So much easier to deal with it that way. Nobody has to edit any posts. It's great. But, you know, I say that anyway. It's just so much better to ask the GM anything. I wish more people would ask us questions. They generally don't. I don't know. Maybe I have to change the way I speak or something. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Take notes. Take notes. I don't know how many times I've told people to take notes. I now have friends who carry little memo pads whenever we go to a roleplay. Even if it's a one-shot, they'll bring a little memo and they'll write down everything, okay? You can use your phone. You know, everybody has a phone now. You can keep your memo on your phone. You can write down all your character information, all the stuff that they do. You know, names your character hears, people they meet, things they see, and places they've been. Any of that stuff at any point could wind up being key to the plot later on. It's rough. Hey, so that's why it's good to have at least one person in your group who's a good note taker, because then you all can rely on that person. That's not so bad, right? You know, and I was that person for a while. Now it's another friend in my group, because I run games so often that they have so many notes of like all the campaigns that we go through. Exactly. Me and Phantom are those people. I'm definitely that. If I'm a player, I'm definitely that person. I'm writing down everything. Even things that don't pertain to my thread. Again, I write them down, but I write them down on a separate side, where else, like, my character has no knowledge of these things. My character does have knowledge of these things. You know, because if somebody says, what was that guy's name? And it's their thread, and if the GM allows me, I'll share my notes with them, you know? Because, you know, even if I didn't hear it, at least, you know, maybe they can make a memory check or something. You know? That's something I allow them to do in my games. But yeah, I encourage people to take notes, if they can. If it drives you crazy, get a friend. Make yourself a friend. No, it does. It does. That's kind of the thing, you know. I encourage you. You know, it's great. It helps the experience overall. It helps you find out key things, you know. I even draw things. Well, because I'm an artist, I draw things, you know. So if there's what, like, the key looks like or something, you know, I'll draw it because I want to know, remember what it looks like, you know. I don't know. I'm just a psychopath like that. Let's see what else. Oh, no, see? And that's another issue, what Phantom just said. If I have to remind the GM, I'm sort of starting to feel a little nervous about the game. I'm starting to think, well, should I maybe just leave? Should I just go run a game? Because obviously I'm keeping better notes than the GM themselves. I don't know what I'm doing here. Gotta rethink my whole existence. It's definitely a thing. But, you know, let's see what else. Player commitment. This was something Phantom suggested. And I was like, yes, player commitment. This is something we need to talk about, because we have issues with this so constantly. You know, and I don't mean to, like, sound strict or anything like that, but please be serious about the games you join, you know? It's fine to decide it's not for you and leave, you know, at some point in time. That's understandable. You know, if it's not a good fit, it's not working out for you, the character doesn't fit in, you just don't like the GM, you don't like a particular player in the group, and it's making it unfun for you, that's totally fine. Leave the game. We understand. But if you're the sort of person who's simply looking for a very brief and momentary cure of boredom, role-playing's probably not for you. Most tabletop RPGs are long-term commitments you have to make sure you have time for, otherwise you're letting an entire group of people down. Not just the GM, but the players as well. Like, if everyone can make a once-a-week game and you can't, you maybe shouldn't join that game. All you'll wind up doing is being a drain on the GM and the other players. Be courteous, be conscientious, know that your dedication as a player affects the game as a whole. And if it's a one-shot, that's totally fine. You know, when it's a one-shot, and whether it's around a table or a one-shot done through Discord, that's fine. It's a temporary situation. You don't have to worry about dedication with those sorts of games. But if you're, again, joining a once-a-week game, and you're telling everyone you can make that once-a-week game, and then it turns out, you know, 3 weeks go by, and you haven't made the session, and everyone's still waiting on you, you know, maybe it's about time you just said, you know, maybe I don't have the time for this game. Maybe I don't have the time for this game, and I need to find a game that's not as fast-paced. you know, because it's not a big deal. And there's people out there who run all sorts of games. There's people who run fast-paced games, slow-paced games, people who run narrative games where you only have to post like once a month. You know, to me that's crazy, but I get it. You know, some people just their lives are busy. Phantom's talking about narrative games, free-form narrative. Generally speaking, people will show up, make a character, make one post on any icy thread, and then flake. And so what winds up happening is they hold up an entire thread. So all of these other courteous role players are ready to acknowledge this person's character, and they may even do so. They'll greet them, say hi, whatever, offer to buy them a drink, whatever the situation may be. And this person, because they've ghosted, is now holding up the entire thread, because all of these people thought that they were going to be active, and it turns out they're not. So, and especially with the freeform narrative games, they usually have a stipulation in the rules about how often you need to post. Like I said, some people, they only require you to post once a month. Sometimes they only require you to post once every 5 to 7 days. Some people want you to post 3 times a day, you know? So it depends on the speed of the game and whether or not you can keep up with it. And if you think you can, but you find out you can't, then it's just, the polite thing to do is just to leave the game. Because then you're not going to be, yes, like forums, or people who play by post through Discord, because people make servers that are just play by post servers. And so, like I said, they'll have an activity recommendation in the rules that they want you to adhere to. Sometimes they'll have different classifications. I'm not surprised, because a lot of people really don't even know that the text narrative genre exists, which is funny to me, because back in the day, there were mushes and muds, and what those were is basically a more basic form of what Discord is. You'd be able to make servers and rooms, and then design them however you want, put little descriptions and all the channels that people can go to. It was literally very, very similar. And so now Discord has the ability to do that, and there are still some, I don't know if I want to say there's thriving narrative communities, but there's definitely some narrative communities. But the problem of dedication, player dedication, is such a rampant problem that we have a term for it. We call it ghosting. You know, you literally come into a game and you disappear. You become a specter. You're no longer there. Oh yeah, not surprised. But yeah, they're no longer there. They're no longer taking part in the game. They're no longer helping threads move. And then we as GMs, or even as fellow players, were sitting there wondering why they even joined the game in the first place. Like, was it to get their character, like, exposed somewhere? Is it to... In some cases, when someone's an artist, I'm like, okay, are you trying to get your art link in here? Like, usually in all of my games, I have a channel dedicated to people putting their website links and their art, so I always wonder why people do that on my games, because they just come in and ghost. I'm like, you could have just pretended to take part in the game for a little while, and you could have dropped your player link off in the right channel, and it would have been there, and everything would have been fine. I don't know. Everyone... The problem with dedication is we don't know what's going on in the heads of players. You know, we don't know what their goals are. Like, you need to communicate with us. What do you want from the game? What do you want us to help you accomplish with your character? That's what we're here for. We're here to help. Even in the narrative genre, you know, more so in the narrative genre. Like, we're trying to collaboratively tell a story here. You know, I just happen to be in control of it. You know. They have their characters. You know. Eventually, maybe us talking about it enough will get people thinking about it. Okay, here's a sensitive subject. Yeah, exactly. You need to define what you want. And then that lets us know if we want to be in the game or if we do. Do or don't, you know? Helps us out. Because that's a good segue. You know, do they want romance? Because here's another topic I decided to touch on today, and that's sex and gaming. Okay. how prevalent what ERP is, okay, erotic role playing, what so many people are engaged in all across the internet. I have nothing against this, you know. I have nothing against people wanting to write whatever they want. You can go write whatever hell kind of erotica you want. That's your freedom as a writer. But when people interpret in-game conquests as real-life conquests, I don't know. You just have to realize that your character getting laid doesn't equal you getting laid. So, and that's what I see going on. I see people treating sex and role-playing like it's actual sex, and it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that people are sitting around saying, I get laid all the time. No, your character gets laid all the time. No. That's not how that works. That's not how any of this works. There's just so many people, whole communities of them, that are obsessed with sex and gaming because they're equating it to real life situations. Also, this is like a warning. Like, please do not use a public roleplay as a springboard for your favorite kink. All right, it's a public roleplay. It's a public space. That's not what everyone else is there for. Therefore, they are not into your kink specifically. They're probably into a wide menagerie of kinks or other very specific kinks. So you trying to force your kink onto a public roleplay full of people, I've seen this happen, and it's hilarious. You know, it's hilarious because it makes forums go dead. You know, I love doing market research. I love joining games and just observing, and I've seen so many things go down. That's something I've noticed. That seems to be a new trend. Asking the players if they're okay with player NPC, neither, both. Yeah, no, I've heard that recently, and I found that really polite. You know, I love courtesy, and that's a real courteous thing to do. It's something that I'm trying to remember to adopt into my demeanor, because I never really think to ask. I'm never trying to push romance into a story. Now, if someone leads their character there, because some people do, they just do, you can tell that's what they're interested in, then that's what they're looking for, you know? So it's like, all right, well, that's where you want to go, so I will steer you there, you know? That's fine. But I definitely never surprise romance on somebody. That would never be something I do. I would have to, like, get their permission. I'd be like, I would ask, you know? Exactly. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's just a possibility. And that's, you know, that's why I should throw that out there every time I run a new game. So that way I know what everyone's comfortable with. Pretty soon people are going to have, like, gamer profiles they're going to link you to, and, like, these are all my hard no's, these are all my yeses. I have a feeling that's going to happen soon. Let's see what else. Yeah, we already covered you're not your character. What they do does not reflect on you. Oh, Phantom has another example. I love Phantom's examples. They're always fantastic. My real world memories are all really hazy. I just remember, like, the best and worst moments. And then online I've seen so many things. So many things. So many stories I could tell. Something after this. Yeah, that is a new... I need to write that down to ask my players permission. Okay. I think I know this example. That was a good story. Depends on the group, Moth. Really depends on the group. because I have heard, I'm not gonna lie, I've heard horror stories, just like I've heard horror stories about the racism with gaming every once in a while. But it doesn't stop me from playing those characters, unfortunately. It just probably gets me denied into certain games, without any explanation. Just denied. That is so crazy to me, Phantom. That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. I mean, other than one of my exes from way back when being jealous of characters I write for in fiction, Like, really? That didn't exist in this world? Are you kidding me? Okay. Okay. Man, some gamers out there are just trying to ruin everyone's fun. That is nice. That's pretty much how my friends are. Like, half the characters wind up LGBTQ characters. So it's not even shocking to me anymore. Not that it was ever shocking before. I was used to people wanting to play those characters. Never bothered me. So when it does bother people, when they argue against it, oh, those characters don't exist here. Really? Really? Okay. Okay. Yeah. You just told me you're insecure in so many ways just by saying that to me. That's why I can't handle that stuff. But God, Phantom, that story just still rocks me every time. Can't believe he was jealous of the goddamn NPC. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he understood. He understood a little too well. Oh, sure. Sure, that's a good topic. That is an excellent topic because this is a horror story I have heard over and over and over again, and it's one of the reasons that if I ever have friends or significant others who play in random games with me online, I never out them as who they are because I just don't want to be accused of favoring them. Not only that, I don't want to be accused of not favoring them, like targeting them overtly, because there's games where, they do the right thing, and there's games where they do the wrong thing, and they suffer consequences like anybody suffers, and sometimes they just keep doing the wrong thing, and there's nothing I can do about it. Other times they do the right thing. They're just doing the right thing over and over again, and so me rewarding them always makes me nervous, because then, I don't want them to accuse me of favoring them, because I'm not. I'm just rewarding the behavior for the person. I consider myself a fair GM. I've been GMing since I was like 12 years old. I just want to tell a story. Other people... Yeah. That's another thing. Getting accused when you're not even related, it's like, no. And that's, again, friends, friends. I don't out friends immediately. Unless I'm inviting them to play some NPCs, then I will admit to everyone, yes, they're my friend, They're helping me GM. They're not actually partaking in the game and getting experience. Though in some cases I will reward them experience in other games that we play in, for them assisting me in other games. But the horror stories I have heard about significant others just derailing a game or focusing everything on their significant other, giving a bad name to people like us who are just trying to have fun. Yeah. No, and that's great. That's good. That's the thing. I've met husbands and wives that we wound up in the same gaming group together, and here I was thinking, oh great, now they're gonna work together and try and screw everyone else over. I can already see this happening. But no, they played enemies. It was the most hilarious thing I ever seen. Like, one played an elf, the other played an orc, and they just hated each other. I was like, this is hilarious. So it's nice. It's nice when people don't get, just shallowly invested in the game like that. Yeah, and then Phantom, it goes badly, doesn't it? I do believe so. Yeah, the Critical Role. I don't. I don't normally watch them either, but I hear stuff, and they seem like a fun group. They seem like fun people. I've never really heard anything bad about them, so that's the one cool thing. And yeah, I've heard bad things. Luckily, I've never seen bad things. So the only time I've seen possible friendships or relationships go not well is in the narrative genre, the freeform narrative genre, because they'll come in partnered up and their characters are indeed partnered up and there's some sort of power couple, powerful vampires or something, just ridiculous characters. And of course, with the two of them, it just makes them a total terror and menace on the game. So, you just have to deal with that sometimes. But they usually wind up removing themselves. Everyone else on the board winds up alliancing. You wind up coming out and acting like a jerk. The other players are gonna start making alliances. It's not the thing to do. Come around and start pissing people off. I don't know. I don't get it. But that's in the narrative genre. Oh man, I think. Okay, that touches on like the last topic of the day, freaking insecurity in games, players and GMs. The players do not belong to you. The females in the groups are not for you to pick on or hit on at any given time. Them refusing your advances should not affect the game you're in, and if it does, you're literally one of the worst people on the planet, next to like serial killers and baby rapists. You're going to trap a female in a gaming group and force her to agree to go out with you, otherwise her character might die? That's obscene. That is absolutely obscene. I've heard that. I've heard that story so many times. I don't understand what drives a GM to just bully someone into liking them, into trying to date them. That's one of the most ridiculous things I've heard of. And yet it happens so often. And it happens so often that I've heard that girls get uncomfortable in gaming groups now, and that just breaks my heart. Because my gaming group, where I am now, it's many, many years ago, even though it was a random meetup group, everyone was really, really cool, and the males tried really hard to not make the females uncomfortable, and I was really impressed by their behavior. It was really cool because there was a couple really attractive females in the group, and I was like, oh, here we go. Every guy on the table is going to be slobbering over these girls, and it's going to make it awkward. No, that never happened. There was a couple guys who were nervous, because they're nervous around pretty girls, but that was it. It was a really good experience. That makes it a little better, when they're not single. When they're single, it's crazy, and it's a form of gatekeeping, which is another thing I don't understand in gaming. Gatekeeping, really? You're gonna... What is this, a high class club? They're not wearing the right shoes? Give me a break, alright? You shouldn't be judging people and barring them from your game just because you don't like what sex they are, what gender they identify as, what characters they play. That's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I guess you can slowly dislike someone for the characters they play, but only if those characters are ridiculously annoying. I don't get it. Crazy to me. Crazy to me that people do it. Crazy to me that this is such a problem that girls, again, are admitting that they get uncomfortable when they're going into new groups with guys. Really bums me out. Really bums me out, because it's just never on my mind that I'm going into a gaming group to try and coerce partners out of these players of mine. That is obscene. It's just obscene. I can't abide by it. I can't approve it. I would not stay in a game where it happened. That's just too much. That's just way too much. people have to deal with enough bullying in the real world than to do something that's supposed to be a leisurely recreation. Yeah. Yeah. I understand that fear, Moth. I really do. That's definitely an understandable terror. I just kind of hope that people don't react negatively. That's all I can really hope. And luckily, I've taken a lot of abuse through my life, and normally that's a bad thing, but in this respect, it's desensitized me to people not liking me, so I actually deal with negative attention far better than I do positive. Positive attention makes me uncomfortable. It makes me flustered. I don't know how to respond to it. I didn't get much of it as a kid, obviously, and so the negative attention I'm totally used to. So even if people did want to flame me for playing an LGBTQ character, I wouldn't care, because that would switch on the insult comic side of my brain, and it would be like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. I've got lots of shit I can talk to you. And I can do it politely. No, yeah, that's the thing, it's disappointing. Even though it makes me angry, it's still sad, because at the end of the day, especially if they're your friends, and you realize they're looking at you differently now, it's always very, very disappointing. It's a little heartbreaking. I get it. It's nothing I like dealing with either. Yeah, and like Phantom said, negative attention, including having PC ideas rejected, and being forced to play a healer. God, I don't understand that one. Being forced to play a healer, whether you're a female or an LGBTQ character, yeah, no, that's not okay. It's not okay to force you into a role. So you're literally gonna force a gender role. How is that not something people get upset about these days? That drives me crazy. Having PC ideas rejected is another huge thing. And I think we touched on this before, making people play the characters that are the same sex as they are in real life. God, I see that as such an invasion of privacy. That is just none of your business, what I really am. We're here to roleplay, not be on a dating app. You don't need to know what I am. It doesn't matter. I'm not interested in any of you really as people. I just want to roleplay, Over time, I am interested in those people. Obviously, I get to know their character, and that makes me want to get to know them. But if they're shallow or just insecure, then obviously I want nothing to do with them. And that tends to be a lot of people. So that's why I do get nervous every once in a while. When I do submit a character, I'm like, oh, this character's kind of fruity. I don't know if they're going to take well to it. But, there's two types of people, it seems like. There's the people that don't take well to it, and then there's the people that are all about it. All about it in the way that, the yaoi sense of it, they're very interested from an ERP angle. So, which is fine and everything, but I'd like to write plot, that's what I'm usually in a story for. Whether it's a live game with dice or a narrative, I want to tell a cool story, Even if that winds up with my character dying at some point, just give me enough time for my character to accomplish something before you kill him off, That's fine, I'll make a new one. Not a big deal. Let's see, I think we've run through all our topics today, which is pretty good timing, because we've just under an hour here. And that's a pretty good discussion, so we're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good, Phantom, at having enough content to fill our hour of discussion. We're figuring this out, slowly but surely. One of these days, I'll have animations. It's been a good one, though. We touched on a lot of topics. We covered a lot of ground. And hopefully we're helping people learn a little bit. Oh, that's right. We wanted to mention the game I was going to run, and if anyone was interested in possibly signing up for it, because I'm going to be testing a a very simple system. And I mean, it's a simplified system upon simplified. It's just ridiculous. I'm trying to make it for a one-shot system so that I can easily have people come in, drop characters. You know, shouldn't take a person more than 10 or 15 minutes to make a character, and then everyone can get playing. And, you know, the quicker we're playing, the quicker you guys can die. Yay! That's how it is with one-shots. You know, one-shots are usually you win the scenario or you lose the scenario, so we'll figure out what happens in this one. This particular setting is loosely based upon Madlands from GURPS way back when. It doesn't really matter what you've played, because this is a system that is literally something I'm trying to just develop on a simple level. I've shown Phantom, they thought it was pretty cool, and that's why they wanted me to announce that I'm going to be running a one-shot with this system and in this setting, which again is loosely based on Madlands from GURPS. Very loosely. It's really just the concept I'm running with. You know, it's a snowy wasteland, bloody creatures, you know, deadly storms, very broken communities that are hiding away. Yep, it's going to be on Discord. It'll definitely be run on Discord. It'll be text because we don't do voice, but we also don't do like super narrative heavy live games. You know, it's all you have to do is be able to tell us what your character's doing. That's all that matters, and be able to use the dice bot. That's pretty much it. Basic stats and then just spells and skills. That's pretty much all there is. So, like I said, keeping it as simple as possible. The setting's pretty brutal, so, you know, again, players might die, but it's a one-shot. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be a tester. It's meant to see how people interact with the system, how they like it, if it's easy for them to understand. You know, because the easier it is for people to understand, then the easier it is to spread it around. Yeah. Yep, we'll have a Dice Maiden. So, if people are interested, they want to apply, just pop me a message. I think I've got my Discord name on my Twitch profile, so you can just fetch it from there, and you can friend me, send me a message, let me know you're interested. We can talk about the system, we can talk about character concepts. It's pretty standard fantasy, so should be pretty fun, should be pretty simple, should be pretty brutal, very bloody. We'll see who lives, but it should be pretty cool. So anyone who's interested, just hit me up. It's that simple. Alright guys, it's been a good one, so I think we're gonna call it here. Thanks for tuning in, everyone who tuned in. Thanks for the new follower, that was really awesome. Cool, just yeah, thanks for watching. Hope more people take part. Hope we get more people, you know, discussing games, because me and Phantom love them. Alright, see you guys later.